Krishna. His last days as Avatar. The endings of some mythological tales of India hold as much significance, if not more, than the legends themselves. Such are the tales associated with the end of the great epic, the Mahabharata. They relate several incidents that occurred during the last days of the Pandavas and of Lord Krishna, the eighth avatar of Sri Mahavishnu, one among the divine trinity of deities. Each and every avatar of Vishnu had a clear mission to perform during the course of their human manifestation. After the completion of that mission, each of these avatars returned to merge with Vishnu, the supreme Godhead. The 18-day Kurukshetra war was over. It had destroyed everything in its vicinity. Bodies of dead soldiers lay strewn on the ground, and the sight was filled with their widows, shedding endless tears for their great loss. The Pandavas had won the war, but were not happy. Quite on the contrary, they too were devastated by the extent of the damage caused and were trying to help wounded soldiers from both the sides. Krishna went to meet Gandhari, the mother of the Kauravas. Gandhari was still very angry and grief-stricken over the death of her 100 sons. She especially could not contain the grief of losing her eldest and favorite son, Duryodhan. She wailed over his body, while her husband, King Dhritarashtra, stood by helplessly. Seeing Krishna, further incensed her, as she was well aware that he was the main person who drove the Pandavas to victory. She had been very devoted to Krishna and had believed that he was God himself. She felt that he could have prevented the war and could have saved thousands of innocent lives, but had instead chosen to remain a silent witness the whole time. She cursed Krishna that, in 36 years, Dwarka would get submerged under the sea and that the entire Yadava clan would perish the same way her sons had died. Knowing that the Yadavas could not be defeated by any other race, she cursed that they would fight within themselves, eventually destroying each other. Krishna quietly accepted the curse and tried to explain to her how many times he had tried to defuse the situation and played mediator between the Pandavas and the Kauravas. He further reminded Gandhari that Duryodhan, the eldest Kaurava prince, had made several unsuccessful attempts to kill the Pandavas. Yet, the latter had remained calm and had abstained from attacking him and his army. After having vented all her anger on Krishna, Gandhari realized her folly. She repented for having hurled curse after curse on her lord. She then fell at his feet and begged for forgiveness for her sins. Krishna smiled lovingly at her and, gently lifting her up, assured her that she had done nothing wrong. He told her that it was his own human karma that he should leave his mortal frame in this way and asked her not to worry anymore about the incident. Days flew by after the war. Yudhishthira was crowned the king of Hastinapura and Krishna went back to his capital, Dwarka. Krishna's consort, Rukmini, was actually the incarnation of Lakshmi, the goddess of wealth. There was hence peace and prosperity everywhere, and the Yadavas enjoyed their luxurious life in that beautiful city. It was the 36th year after the great Kurukshetra war. The Yadavas were so much in bliss in Dwarka that they started taking things for granted. They forgot the importance of values, morals, humility, and good conduct. They were arrogant and spoilt by all the wealth they were enjoying. Once, the Saptarishis, the seven sages, decided to visit Krishna and Balram in Dwarka. Hearing about their impending arrival, Samba, the son of Krishna, decided to test their powers. The young man dressed himself as a woman and placed a make under his dress to make himself appear as a pregnant woman. He, along with two of his friends, approached the rishis. One of Samba's friends went up to the rishis and, introducing himself as the woman's husband, requested them to predict the gender of the unborn child. With their siddhis, spiritual powers, the rishis realized that this was a hoax and were angry at being treated with such disdain. One of the sages, Kanva Maharishi, immediately grabbed his kamandla and, sprinkling some water on the youth, cursed that whatever he bore in stomach would be actually born to him. He further declared that the thing would eventually lead to the extinction of the entire Yadva clan. The youths were stunned for a moment. But being arrogant and foolish, they just laughed it off and left the place, without even bothering to apologize to the rishis for their behavior. The sage's curse took effect the very next morning. Samba developed labor pains and soon delivered a make from within him. The Yadvas now realized their mistake and became fearful. They took the make and rushed to Akrura and Ugrasena. They all then went to Krishna and related the whole story to him. Akrura immediately ordered them to grind the make to a fine powder and throw it into the sea. Krishna merely smiled and remained silent. He knew that Gandhari's curse had started working and that Samba was merely a medium for their collective karma to unfold. 36 years ago, Krishna had prayed to Shiva for a son like him. Shiva had bestowed the boon upon him. However, Shiva was the god of destruction, and a son like him would ultimately end up destroying everything around him. The Yadvas worked hard to grind the make to a fine powder. They had followed all of Akrura's instructions. However, there was one triangular piece of the make that simply could not be ground. They tried their level best, but could not grind it. Fed up, they finally threw the powder, plus the triangular piece, into the sea. Once that was done, they returned home, assured that all would be well from then on. The triangular piece was swallowed by a fish. Zara, a hunter, caught the fish and, upon finding the sharp metal piece in its belly, used it to craft a fine poisonous arrow. In the meantime, the fine powder washed back ashore and settled itself along the impressive coastline of Dwarka. There, a type of grass, called erka, grew in abundance all along the coast. The city of Dwarka started witnessing strange dark omens. Krishna's Sudarshana Chakra, the Panchjanya, conch, his chariot and Balram's plough suddenly disappeared, as if into thin air. The clean city became infested by various types of pests. People started committing sinful acts. Husbands and wives cheated on each other. People started ill-treating senior residents. Some people were indulged in theft and looting, yet others had unexplained nightmares. Seeing all these bad omens, Krishna asked the residents to gather by the sacred Prabha Sea and pray for the well-being of everyone around. People went to the beach, but instead of sitting in prayer and contemplation, they started drinking heavily and making merry as usual. They were in such an intoxicated state that they had no control over themselves and their actions. They started teasing each other and finding each other's faults. Satyaki and Kritvarma, who had fought for the Pandavas and Kauravas respectively, were there too. They were the ones who actually marked the beginning of the end. What started with random comments and taunts ended in Satyaki drawing out his sword and cutting off Kritvarma's head. This enraged the latter's friends. They pounced on Satyaki and attacked him. Krishna's son, Pradyumna, was only an innocent onlooker. He too, however, was pulled into the massive brawl that ensued, and was killed by the angry crowd. Krishna knew that the curse had started to take effect. He plucked the erka grass that grew by the beach and placed them near the fighting Yadvas. Still not quite aware of what they were doing, the Yadvas started throwing the blades of grass on one another. Kamva Marharishi's curse came into being and each blade of the erka grass became a make. These maces hit the Yadvas, killing them instantly. All the Yadvas died within a matter of minutes. Thus, the entire clan lay dead, right in front of their king. Seeing this immense destruction unfold before his very eyes, Krishna decided that it was now time for him to shed his mortal form and end his avatar on earth. Before leaving, he asked Arjuna to take care of all the bereaved Yadva women. Then, along with Balram, Krishna left for the forest. In the meantime, Arjuna was taking the Yadva women to Hastinapura. They encountered fierce bandits along the hilly terrain. Arjuna fought hard, but having become old, was no match for the bandits. Eventually, the latter decamped with the women in their custody. As Krishna left Dwarka, a huge wave came in from the sea and swallowed the beautiful city into its unfathomable depths. Even today, this region lies submerged under the sea. All the survivors of the land, including Vasudeva, were dragged into the sea by that one mighty wave. Having traveled deep into the forest, Krishna and Balarama decided to rest. Saddened by all the destruction, Balarama sat down in meditation. Soon, Balarama's breathing stopped. He gave up his earthly life as well. A thousand-headed serpent manifested from his lifeless body. It approached Krishna, offered salutations to him, and then glided toward the sea. Incidentally, Balarama is believed to be Adisesha, the serpent, who supports and protects Sri Mahavishnu, also the bed on whom Vishnu reclines in the Milky Ocean. Overcome with grief at the loss of Balarama, Krishna rested against a tree, stretching his legs in the front. Meanwhile, Zara, the hunter, was roaming in the forest on his usual hunting expedition. Seeing Krishna's foot sticking out from the bushes, he mistook it for a deer and shot it down with his poison-tipped arrow. The arrow was the very one he had crafted from the little triangular piece of mace that had not been powdered. When Jara realized his folly, he was utterly inconsolable. He tearfully begged for Krishna's forgiveness and refused to leave his side. Krishna merely smiled and assured him that it was not his fault and that this was the way things had been designed to turn out. Krishna then blessed Jara, took Vishnu's form and returned to his abode, Vaikuntha. It is said that Jara was none other than the mighty Vali in his previous birth. At that time, Vishnu had taken the avatar of Lord Sri Rama and had slain Vali, the then monkey king. Rama had no enmity with Vali and had killed him for no reason, and that too, in a cowardly manner, hiding behind a tree. Vali later took birth as Jara and was responsible for killing Krishna. This story points out the fact that the laws of karma apply universally to everyone, and that even God cannot prevent it from impacting his own life. Finally, as the Krishna avatar came to end, Lord Krishna's spirit left for heaven. Bhagwan Krishna's disappearance marks the beginning of the current debauched age, also known as Kali Yuga. This is the end of narration on Krishna's life after Kurukshetra war. If you like the narration, please provide your comments and share your likes. I will post more stories on Hindu mythology and gods.